Hi, good morning, everyone, and welcome to this latest MAPAL Fireside Chat. I'm James McLuckie, Chief Learning Officer at Flow Learning, who's part of the MAPAL Group. This morning, we're going to be discussing employer branding, which obviously is a very pertinent subject given the recruitment challenges currently faced by the hospitality industry. I'm delighted to be joined this morning by Natasha Nagra, Head of Employer Branding and Talent at Kew Green Hotels. Good morning, Natasha.
Hello.
So Natasha has been integral to several award-winning employer and talent branding projects. So we're really happy to have her here to share her thoughts and her insights on employer branding. So how are you this morning, Natasha? Are you doing okay?
Yeah, not too bad, although it's typical, isn't it? Just as we get to the weekend again, I'm looking out the window now and the rain is here. So
damn.
Yeah, no, other than that, all good. Very busy. Lots of vacancies that we're working on at the moment. I know everybody across hospitality can relate to that at the moment, but yeah, it's all good.
Good stuff. So just, you mentioned you're recruiting there. Can you just give, for a little bit of context, just provide an idea of who Kew Green Hotels are, how large you are, what your operating model is, etc.?
Yeah, we've got over 40 hotels in the UK, and if you don't know Kew Green Hotels, you'll certainly know the brands that we work with. So we're Holiday Inn, Hilton, and Marriott Hotels across the whole of the UK. We do also have an international portfolio at the moment, but myself and my team tend to concentrate on the UK. In terms of the types of roles that we're recruiting for, everything that you would expect, so general managers, chefs, but we recently went through the process of restructuring our business we've now got new guest services roles where we've combined sort of our front office and our reception, which is quite new for us. So we're recruiting for talent that's slightly different from before. So we've tweaked some of our approach to recruitment to support that. But yeah, that's us.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. So everyone, you should have a chat facility available. So if you have any questions for Natasha when she's talking about her thoughts and insights or tips, some of the projects that Kew Green Hotels have worked on, please do feel free to use the chat to put them in there. It'd be also nice to find out who we've got on the Fireside Chat this morning. So please tell us who you are, where you're from, what organisation you're from. That would be really helpful as well. Really interesting to find out that information too. So basically, employer branding, I was having a look about it and, looking at the CIPD website, LinkedIn, various sources, and everyone seems to have a different definition of what it actually means. So just in your own words, Natasha, how would you define employer branding and why it's important?
Yeah, so I think at the foundation, like your employer value proposition is what you as an employer differentiate yourself with in terms of your people offer. So what's attractive to people coming to work in your organisation? And then your employer brand in itself, it exists. I don't think that there's really anything that you can do to influence it other than you can tweak your EVP, but it exists regardless of whether you've got that in place or not. And then your employer branding efforts essentially is taking the elements of your EVP and your employer brand that exists at the moment and finding those stories and helping other people connect with your organisation through those, because people relate to other people's experiences and they want to understand what attracted them to the business. So at its core, I think that's what employer branding is about.
Okay, and what do you think makes a great employer brand then?
There's not really a one-size-fits-all approach. It's based on the type of talent that you want to attract. There's no one great employer brand that exists. There are fundamental things that I think inherently we as individuals all want on a basic level, and it shifts over time. So at the moment, I think there's a big focus on well-being, opportunity for development, freedom to kind of be yourself and work in an inclusive organisation. Those seem to be things at their core. But depending on the industry that you're in and the types of talent that you're looking to recruit, I think it's really important to kind of be able to pivot based on that. So yeah.
Okay.
What's the answer?
No. It sounds like a bit of a wish list of what a great employer brand should be. So can I just ask you, so what's some of the things that you guys at Kew Green Hotels have actually done to position yourselves as a great employer?
Yeah, so we'd worked really hard on our employer value proposition and what those pillars were prior to the pandemic. But I think one of the things that we realised very early on was that people's expectations of work and how they thought and how they felt and the things that were motivating them changed like more or less overnight with the pandemic. And so rather than just assuming what people would want and how we can, support people with that internally, we went out and we created a feedback survey where any employee at any time could give us feedback directly to the senior team. And what that meant, we was able to communicate and change our offer slightly to support what people were going through at that time. So that meant putting in place an employee assistance program where people could, call up and get support if they needed to. We ended up putting in place like a calendars of activities for people that were on furlough so that they could still feel connected with their teams. We put in place mental health first aiders for people so that they could, get additional support. And so we knew that we were doing things that were making a difference to the business. And similarly, then when we're communicating externally now, and we're trying to attract people into the business, we've got a really good understanding of what kind of motivates people at the moment and what people are looking for and what people are enjoying at work at the moment and the things that they're not necessarily liking so much. And so we use that a lot in our recruitment, marketing and employer branding initiatives. And I think we don't necessarily shy away from some of the bad things. We'll say, like, it's tough at the moment. We are short-staffed, but what it's meaning is you get the opportunity to get more experience than you usually would over a quicker period of time. So, like, for example, we've used the tagline, jump the queue to your future career, and you will, because you'll get more experience much quicker. I think that's what is really important with employer branding at the moment. It's tough in hospitality at the moment, and it's very easy to go out there and sell the dream to people, but then, people have an expectation, and if their reality doesn't live up to it, you're only going to lose people, and we could run the risk of losing more people from the industry in the longer term. So yeah.
And what about pre-pandemic? What are some of the things that you put in place to make sure you guys had a great brand?
Some things were quite similar. So wellbeing has always been important for us. And it's been one of the cores of our pillars. And we've got like different benefits and entitlement that we offer to our team through a benefits platform that's all centered around wellbeing. We offer our teams free gym membership and all those kind of things. One is around our commitment to training every employee every day. That's quite a big thing for us, and the way that we facilitate that is we deliver training that's customized for our head office teams and our operational teams, and we send that to our teams every single day. So we want our teams to really be in a position where they know upon joining us that they're going to get more development than if they were. Oh, it's terrible to say when competitors, please join us, not them. We've also got the ability to, influence your earning potential through lots of different schemes and initiatives. So that was a key one for us. We wanted people to be able to be rewarded for the amount of effort that they put in, the development that they undertake, etc. So nothing too dissimilar to what other people would centre and concentrate on, really.
There was a really cool thing I read about you did. It wasn't ditching CVs, but it was making CVs less part of your process and giving people other opportunities to show what talents they could bring. It'd be nice to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so we it was a project that we ran, and it was really successful for us, whereby we implemented what was essentially gamified behavioural assessment as part of our recruitment process. So we took all of the individuals across our organisation. Every person conducted like a 30-minute test. You played some games, but it identified the core characteristics and behaviours of everybody across the business. And then what we were able to do is, per role within the company, identify our top performers and the characteristics that they shared that made them successful, meaning that we created a profile of core skills, behaviours, characteristics that would be a determinant of success upon people joining the business. So what that meant was, instead of looking at people's CVs and saying, okay, so they've worked in a competitor hotel, or they've worked in a particular university, which we know is so detrimental potentially to bringing in bias to the process, and it's not necessarily a determinant of whether or not somebody's going to be successful in our organisation. We just said, okay, we can get rid of the CV and enable people to do these assessments instead. It was about 15 minutes worth of assessment that they took part in, and we were able to identify with a percentage of accuracy how successful they were going to be in the business. It was a really, really great project, and it's something that at the moment we're hoping to put back in place from a tech perspective, because we really saw the benefit of it. And certainly at the moment, where for some positions we're not necessarily experiencing poor volumes of candidates, it means that we can really save some costs within the organisation as well in terms of screening candidates fairly. So yeah, it was a really exciting project.
Yeah, no, this is when reading about that, rather than sending in a CV, like a chef would record a 20-second video, tell me about your signature just in your own words. I thought it was a really progressive way of looking at recruitment.
Yeah, no, it was interesting because the videos that were uploaded, it's amazing what technology can do, but that it could analyze like facial expressions and the way people talk, and that would also contribute towards people. Like, it blows my mind, honestly, what the capabilities are out there at the moment. But yeah, I just think, we do need to continue to think really differently about not only how we assess people, but at that initial piece where we're trying to attract people into the business and we're a people-focused business. Is it really are we really assessing people and attracting people in the right way by asking them to submit a CV for a job? It just seems pretty archaic and not necessarily, indicative of, what we need to be doing to find the right personality and core skills that make people successful in our industry. So
yeah, no, I think it's interesting because obviously, you're in a very people-focused role. The industry is very people-focused. You're using tech. I think that fusion of tech and people is, I think it's really exciting because I think it's still very much in its infancy, and it's going to be incredibly fascinating to find out where that goes.
Yeah, definitely. And there's swings and roundabouts because we noticed that not everybody wanted to do that. Some people wanted to go down the more traditional route. And of course, you're like millennials and like younger generations, naturally they use technology. It's, and it's native to them. Whereas, we're really still keen to attract people from all demographics, and we don't want to disengage certain people from wanting to apply from us to us. So I just think you can't necessarily go out with a one size fits all approach, but definitely worth continuing to explore that for us.
Okay, so how do you know your initiatives are working? I mean, what kind of analytics do you have, or surveys do you do? How do you know that that things are actually positively received?
Yeah, as I said, so we have an open feedback survey where our employees can share on a scale of 1 to 5 how they feel every day. And it's just a free text box. It's completely anonymous, but we can ask people to share, not just the good stuff, shout outs to colleagues, what's not working at the moment, what do you want to see changed? And on a weekly basis, we collate all of that feedback and share it with the senior team, and we make recommendations in order to kind of pivot from a communications perspective, from an employer branding perspective. Are there any interventions that we need to be able to make in terms of just changing our ways of working? I think particularly from an employer branding and EVP perspective at the moment, it's really important to take like a one size fits all approach doesn't work, and putting that survey in place meant that we can go down different routes and implement different things, and making sure that we're addressing how different people are feeling. Like, our central teams feel very different to our operational teams. So, for example, at the moment, our central teams really would like more learning and development offer available for them, whereas our operational teams are so unbelievably busy at the moment. They just want to be able to get by with the statutory stuff, and then learning and development will come later on. So, and we would never have really identified that if it weren't for the survey. We're obviously measuring the usual things as well, i.e. New hire turnover, how many people are leaving us at the moment. And I think that's very important from an employer branding perspective, because nationally we're running, a number of campaigns to try and attract people through paid social media and similarly in local areas. Yep. But the messaging needs to be right. We don't want to be trying to recruit people and then they're joining the operation and having a bad experience. So we're measuring the new high turnover and making sure we're collecting data of why people potentially might be leaving us. And yeah, those are the key things that we're focusing on at the moment, really, aside from, I guess, our recruitment funnel. How many people have we got that are seeing our vacancies, and how many of those are then converting through to applications, and trying to find areas where are drilling into the data to find what might not be right and what campaigns work well and not. So, yes.
Yeah. So what kind of team do you have behind you then? I mean, who's all working with you to make sure that, Kew Green has got that fantastic employer brand?
Yeah, so we were a really small team. So it was always really amazing when we won some, like all the awards we did previously. We won like recruitment team of the year, and there was just 2 of us at the time, and we're like, this is just amazing. But the team has grown a little bit now, whereby, so there's myself, and I've got Charlie, who's in my team. She looks after content production, that employer brand communications piece. And, you know, a lot of organisations kind of moved away from having that position over the last few months as a cost-saving exercise. But I think we recognised really early on that through all the challenges that our teams are facing at the moment, continuing to concentrate on engaging our people and continuing to build our employer brand ready for when we're ready to recruit again was key. So that stayed with us. And then I've also got an amazing intern in my team at the moment who came from one of our operational teams, who's working with us, and it was meant to be doing an internship whereby he moved around all the different departments, but all we've been doing is recruitment, so he's had a bit of time for the last few months, but he's wonderful. And then we've got some trainers as well. I think learning and development for us, and the focus on we want to grow our people. We know it's similar to what you said earlier on today, that we might lose people to go to other industries, but we're very much of the belief that if we can give people a great experience when they're with us, they might join us again in the future, or, you know, it still enables us to recruit some of the very best people into the business, and it's worth the investment while they're with us. So yeah, very small team.
Okay, but you mentioned you won a few awards there, so tell us some of the awards you won and what it was you did to actually get them.
Yeah, so one of the favourite ones that I enjoyed was we won an award, one of the Springboard Awards. We ran a campaign for what was at the time our chef school, our apprenticeship programme, and we wanted to attract school leavers. So we decided to run a campaign entirely through Snapchat. We'd never done it before. It was like it was nerve-wracking because it was like where we were focusing all of our efforts, but we set out to recruit 35 apprentices solely through Snapchat. And we designed a campaign, the recipe for success, and the ingredients were very much just centered around the core characteristics that we were looking to recruit. We created gifts in our kitchen, and we sponsored the adverts, and we managed to recruit all 35 as a result off the back of it. And it was great. In terms of reach, we had like over 5,000 people that kind of saw those adverts through Snapchat, and we managed to convert everybody through that we originally intended to. And it was nice to do something that was a little bit scary because we'd never used that channel before, and I'm way too old to use Snapchat. So when the team were talking about it, I'm like, yes.
I think I get this. Yeah.
But obviously it worked, and we managed to attract the right demographic that we were looking for. So that was pretty exciting. And we have won awards for our approach to learning and development. The scheme that I talked to you about earlier on today, our Service Secrets, which is our daily training. We've recently digitalised it, so we won awards for it previously, but now we've moved across to using Flow, and so we're utilising the Flow notice board area to be able to send the daily training cards out to our teams every day, and people can access it on their mobile. So whether they're at work or they're in the operation and they've got 5 minutes, they know that they've got access to new training every single day. So I'm hoping that we might be able to enter some more awards soon. Hopefully we might be able to actually attend in person. It feels like forever ago since we were at the actual award ceremonies.
Yeah, it's interesting. That is, a couple of award ceremonies tend to be a fixture of my calendar each year, and we have done it virtually, and it's all very well. But you forget sometimes it's the only time in the year you get to catch up with certain people and swap stories about what you're doing, and and have that kind of rapport. So yeah, I'm very much looking forward to that too.
Yes, me too. Maybe next year.
Yeah, maybe perchance the dream. But it's great to hear that you're so focused on learning and development, because obviously I'm a learning development professional, been doing it for a long time. But when I speak to people in orgs, it's generally the first department to get cut, or it's the first initiative to get scrapped because you have to focus on other things. So I mean, what would you say to someone who's thinking, oh, but we're in a bit of a bind here, or we're having to make cuts as a science? What would you say to someone who's thinking about putting L&D on the back burner?
I just would say, and I'm going to be like incredibly blunt, but it's such a short-sighted approach to things, and the long-term consequence of not investing in learning and development will far outweigh any short-term cost cutting that you're gonna see. Because I think certainly at the moment, when things are continuing to change so rapidly, being able to support people with that is key, it is core. But if we're not bringing people into hospitality and giving them the opportunity to develop a career if they want it, I genuinely believe at the moment that we will lose people out of our industry for quite some time. So we have to continue to do it. I was quite fortunate at Kew Green, whereby, I've got our CEO, rather than reducing costs, put additional cost into it. So we were able to move towards implementing flow very early on in the pandemic. And that was because we recognised that change is coming. We can't get out into the classroom in the same way that we used to. We can't be traveling up and down the country, heading into the hotels, but learning is so important, especially now as we're starting to, guest expectations are changing all the time. And, how we manage our teams needs to change. And if you haven't got a solid learning and development offer to be able to, pivot and deliver training that supports that, I just think you're leaving your operations so vulnerable.
Completely agree with that. But I'm interested to find out more about the crossover between, or your thoughts on the crossover between personal branding and employer branding, because obviously, we all cultivate our personal brand. You and I here together talking about, things that really interest us. We're probably active on social media, go to award ceremonies, contribute back to the industry. So obviously that's all part of our personal brand. But you're here today, Natasha, as an ambassador for Kew Green Hotels. So I'm just wondering, where do you think the crossover is between personal branding and employer branding, and where do you think the divide should be?
Yeah, I think your employer brand, as I said to you earlier, it already exists. It's the people that work in your organisation, their approach to work, their personal brand all contributes towards it. And I think, it's very easy for organisations to go out and say, this is what it's like to work here. You can almost say anything. I hope people don't do that. But I think when you really want to tap into talent pools and you really want to attract people that are similar to people that work in your organisation at the moment, the leveraging the personal brands of the individuals who work in your business is really, really important. And I think particularly at the moment when hospitality is seen as perhaps being quite an unsafe industry to work in, and people are generally more apprehensive about making a move if they are in a secure job at the moment. There are lots of things that are, contributing towards people's reluctance to make a move. But I think having people in your organisation that have got a strong employer brand and who advocate for the organisation, if it's genuine and that's how they feel, and they can be authentic about the experiences that they're having at work, it's going to be much more easy for people to build trust in that organisation and feel more confident in being able to make a move. I think that the whole personal branding piece is a really core part of the employer branding of any organisation.
And so how do you make use of those personal brands to ensure that, Kew Green has got a great employer brand?
Yeah, so I think what we do is we've ran sessions previously around how to build personal brands and localized employer brands for our hotels. And I think what we've identified is a lot of it comes down to confidence. People have really great stories to tell and they have really great things that they can share, but it's a little bit nerve-wracking when you whether it be taking it to Instagram or taking it to LinkedIn. So what we do as a central team is we're just on hand really to kind of say, we send out pointers in our weekly newsletter, these are some of the topical things that's going on at the moment. This is our calendar of content that we're sharing. And if you've got anything that you can potentially add that supports that or surrounds it, then share it. And we're here on hand to kind of check if you feel like you've got the tone of voice right. But largely speaking, that's just a confidence thing in the first instance. We really want people to just be completely authentic and themselves when they're sharing stuff externally. But there's no right or wrong thing to say, particularly when it comes to employer branding. As I say, you just want it to be real. You just want people to share their experiences in the workplace.
Yeah, I think authenticity is quite an underrated trait, isn't it? I mean, you tell a story, and it sounds like it's coming from you. It always is much more powerful, isn't it?
I know, and I think it's such a buzz term, and I know some people don't like it, but it's one of probably the most important things about employer branding is kind of owning the realness of it. It's not all about shiny, lovely, brilliant, nice experiences that happen. Sometimes people relate more to if something terrible happened, but your team managed to turn it around and, you all chipped in together, but you worked 16 hours and it was horrific. But there was this sense of togetherness when you did it. Those are actually the stories that people buy into more because they're relatable. They might have experienced it themselves and they can picture what it would be like to truly work in a business. So, yeah.
Great stuff. So I'm sat here. I work in hospitality. I know I've got an issue with my employer brand. What are the three key things you think I should start doing now to turn that around, or to make a start in ensuring I've got a great brand?
Yeah, so the first is, I think the first two things for me would come down to data. So you want to capture as much of it as possible. So going out with a survey, asking some really specific and sometimes uncomfortable questions. So not just what's great about working here, what is the one thing you wish you could change, or what is the one thing that, you know, if you were to leave Kew Green, what would be the reason why you would want to leave? Asking those questions to get underneath the skin, but then going out and listening. I think it's all very well doing a survey, but you need to get out, you need to get into, you know, your locations, you need to see and understand how people are feeling and interview them face to face. And then the third thing for me would be just actioning off the back of that. So strip down, what is the reason why people get up in the morning? Why do they work for your organisation? Warts and all, what are the great things and what are the bad things? And then start to build your employee offer off the back of that, and stay true to yourself with it. Don't go out with shiny like proclamations of how wonderful it's going to be to work in your organisation. If it's not, there will be people that will work for you based on the things that the people that work in your existing organisation get up for at the moment, you know. So yeah, I know I'm going to use that buzz term again, just be authentic with it.
Yeah. And looking back at all, you know, obviously you've had a fantastic career in employer branding. What are your key lessons learned? What are some of the things you think, oh, you know what, I wish I'd known that at the start?
Yeah, I think like very early on when we first went out with our employer brand, we kind of did it in more of a top-down way, i.e. we think these are all the things that people are really going to love about working for the organisation. Let's put in some extra benefits. Let's do this, let's do that. And your employer brand and your EVP is just not based on benefits. It's something far different. And I think I learned very quickly that people are motivated by things that you have. It's sometimes not so easy to identify and quantify, and without having spent a lot of time really understanding people's motivators, it's impossible to build an employer value proposition off the back of it. Yeah, I think that would be the key thing for me, really.
Okay, great. And if there's one thing what you wish you could do to enhance the employer brand, but currently are not, or are planning on doing it, what would that be? Or it doesn't have to be one thing, it can be several things.
Yeah, I wish I had like a big, huge £100,000 budget whereby I could go out, get onto the TV, get onto, you know, a really big marketing campaign. We talked a little bit about this, James, when we were speaking earlier on today, but I think there are so many wonderful things about working in hospitality that are kind of overshadowed at the moment by people's fear of it being an unsafe industry, or, you know, there's still this thought process that it's really long unsociable hours and people can't build a career in the industry. And I think we've done some really great things from an employer branding perspective, but now's the time for us all to come together and bring all of our employer brands and be able to really shout about how much of a wonderful industry it is. And I just wish I could find the resources to be able to do that. But yeah, times are still tough at the moment.
Yeah. You're part of a consortium, though, aren't you? A group that's trying to get that message across. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so HIRE, which is Hospitality's internal recruitment exchange, is a networking group of individuals who work in the people space across hospitality, and we just want to do good stuff for the industry. So obviously very topical at the moment is what I just discussed, and how we address the reduction in people wanting to enter into the industry. And we're talking very much about how we can bring that potentially to life over the coming weeks. So if anybody's got any great ideas or they want to get involved in that, there's a group on LinkedIn. So please request to come and join us. Yeah, we'd love to hear about it.
Great stuff. Well, that's just about out of time now. Is there any one little last thing you want to say about employer branding, or last little golden nugget that you'd like to leave us all with?
Oh God, I don't know. You put me on the spot now.
Sorry about that.
No, that's it. But if anybody's got any questions, I'm on LinkedIn. Please connect with me. Yeah.
Fantastic. So I believe you're recruiting for about 300 roles at the moment. Is that right?
Yeah,
okay. Yeah. So you've got a very full plate. So listen, thank you so much for making the time to come and speak to us today. I'm sure everyone got a lot about what you had to say, Natasha. So thank you very much for joining us this morning.
No, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, fantastic. Thanks for joining us, everyone. I hope you all have a fantastic Friday and a great weekend. Okay, take care now.
Bye.
Bye-bye.